AI, it's a double-edged sword. It can be used for bad and we can TikTok brainwash everybody, or we can use it to transform education.
You became one of the most successful guys in the tech world by far. Bill Gates came down and said, "You're the only person now competing me for talent."
I went to Stanford for a few years, famously dropped out. The headline on the article was my dad telling me what a moron I was.
And that was to found Trilogy.
We were the first AI product to sell $1 billion.
And then you're focusing now on K-12.
We have built a learning engine that teaches kids 10 times faster. And our students come in 2 hours a day. They're at an AI tutor. They learn over twice as much as kids who sit in class for 6 and do homework. We're the best performing academic school in the country, and I'm gonna get this out to 1 billion kids. AI gives kids superpower. Used correctly, it gives kids superpowers.
CEO and co-founder.
The founding partner of
Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale.
Joe Liemandt is an American legend, one of the top 10 most successful technology entrepreneurs in the country. He's been living behind the scenes. Very few people know who he is because he has not done any press. He's just coming out in the media the last month. It's amazing what he's accomplished at huge scale in the technology world. He's also a wise man who is going to change the future of education in America. He's starting hundreds of schools. He's using the best in AI, the best in incentives, and a lot of other wisdom on how kids learn. You know, originally he built this for his children, but he stepped up and made it a mission in life to take advantage of what's going on in our country with school choice, with AI, and to really take our country back to the best education in the world. Really interesting ideas. Contrarian guy, thinks for himself. You're going to want to hear what Joe Liemandt's up to. Welcome to American Optimist. Really excited to have my friend and the legend Joe Liemandt here with us today. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Joe, you're one of the most successful people in the technology world, but you always laid low for like 30 years. You built Trilogy. I remember Bill Gates came down and said, "You're the only person now competing me for talent," in the 1990s, and you just crushed it there. But now you're the principal of Alpha School, very famously, which is going to change education in America. You're going to open hundreds, thousands of schools. Let's start with your background, first of all. Where'd you come from? Where were you born?
Sure. Born in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and moved around every couple years. My dad worked for General Electric. Jack Welch's strategic planner, places where they had a factory. I think I lived in those cities all over the place.
And you were at Stanford after that?
And then I went to Stanford for a few years, but then, famously dropped out. And the headline on the article was my dad telling me what a moron I was.
and that was to found Trilogy.
And that was.
What were you working on early on at Trilogy? What year was this?
Yeah. So I would have been class of 90 if I'd graduated, but
Wow.
I officially dropped out the summer of between summer and junior year. I'm sure my professors would have said he might not have been coming to class as much as he should have even before then. But what happened was, in the sort of background I got into it, in high school, I literally wrote a paper on experts on AI.
Yeah.
And back then, AI was expert systems. And I remember I had a paragraph in the paper that was like, neural nets, they're decades away.
Yeah.
And so I then went to Stanford, and Professor Feigenbaum is considered the father of expert systems. And so I was literally in his class when he talked about, if you build these things called configurators that are really hard to build, but if you build one, these things are worth millions of dollars a day. And so I ended up dropping out.
What's a configurator? How's that work?
So configurators are, if you have if you're building something, manufacturing something, and you have lots of different permutations of it. The easiest ones that are simple ones are if you go to a car website and you figure out, what features and options you want, or a Dell, what kind of Dell computer you want. We were doing ones at scale. So you want a phone switch, you want a Boeing airplane, you want an X-ray scanner, big mainframes.
You're not just choosing things, though. It's automatically figuring it out for you.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to take the knowledge that's in manufacturing and engineering and put it out to the sales force. So the reason we took off, and our claim to fame was we were the first AI product to sell $1 billion, was, laptops were new back in these days, right? So the 90s, which was, if you sell it, the sales rep would be out there and he would sell things that couldn't be built. Just, it's not manufacturable. And they'd only catch it way late on the manufacturing facility. And it would cost millions of dollars to be like, fix it, or free parts to the customer, or just delays, like go back to the customer and say, whatever we sold you just doesn't work.
I work mostly in software. We have trouble there sometimes with salespeople selling ahead, but I guess with real world stuff, it's even worse.
It's even worse. Like I was walking down the manufacturing line at Boeing, and the president's like, that misconfiguration costs us $1 million. We're gonna have to repunch that plane, and so there was tons of business value, and it was, could could you just build it? And so that's what we built back then, and that's how. And that was Trilogies, and then back to what we were known for was we were also known for recruiting talent.
You hired a lot of the best people. I think Austin, Texas here, there's really you and Michael Dell who brought in just like tons of people. And I'm really glad you did, because I live here now. And I feel like you must have hired at least a couple thousand really top talent. Like what were the numbers?
So how we got here is, we couldn't raise venture capital. No one thought our idea was good and it would never work. And John Lynch, who was our co-founder, was like, look, Joe, if I'm going to be poor, I'm going to be poor in Austin because it's cheaper. Back in the 90s,
even now it's still cheaper in the Bay Area, I think.
But it was a lot cheaper back then. Yeah. And so he moved down here. We're like, okay, we're all moving to Austin. Yeah. And so we moved down to Austin. But the problem was there wasn't huge software talent. And so the way we solved it is we brought down 2,000 Ivy League grads or top talent and had them move to Austin.
So you had a playbook. You gave them hard tests. You had them meet interesting people to bring them here.
Yeah. I mean, our recruiting was really effective. And this is actually part, and it actually relates to how we do school too, and some of our beliefs of it. We created a thing called Trilogy University, and Trilogy University in the 90s was the hardest boot camp that any company in the world had. Harvard Business Review wrote articles on it, and it was the hardest one available, which was they came down and they worked 100 hours a week, for months, and people were like, why are you getting all this top talent if that's what you do to them? That seems crazy. I'm like, the reason they're coming is because that's what they do to them. Yeah. Kids coming out of college want to show they're awesome.
Yeah, they want to be challenged.
Have an impact. They want to be challenged. Yeah. And I remember just having discussions with other companies. I'm like, you're trying to babysit them and make it nice, and they don't want to, do a gas cap. If they literally want to come down here, work hard, show they can have impact and do big things.
They want to go to a war to change the world, right? People go really hard right out of college if they're good.
Exactly. And so that was our recruiting pitch, and it worked really effectively, and that's why we were able to get everybody down here.
And you got all these people here. You guys crushed it, built a big company. There was an interesting pivot after 2000. I think you bought the company, and then you started also buying eventually hundreds or thousands of other companies. So can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, so 90s was all organic build. We were just building stuff, sales, in the sales world. And then after the dot-com meltdown, a huge percent of our customers went bankrupt during that. And what we realized in the aftermath was we were actually good operators. Like we actually knew how to run software companies well. And there was all these software companies that were really cheap. And so we bought a couple of them. We made like 10 times our money. And we're like, oh, we should probably do more of this. I mean, it's not really that. It wasn't really more strategic or complicated than that. And so today, Trilogy, still private company, you sort of have Trilogy, which is our organic build side, and ESW, which is our acquisition side. And we either go out and build things or acquire companies.
They've gotten really big at acquiring a lot of things. They even reach out to all my guys, and stuff. We're like, no, because they think they buy things when things aren't doing as well. So it's bad if they reach out to something.
Well, someone has to, venture capital returns, right?
We're focused on the things going into the sky.
You're going to the sky. So what do you do with all the rest of them, right? And if you're a growth CEO, right, who started something to go, build the unicorn and Billionaire, a lot of them don't make it. So what do you do with what's left?
Yeah, how to run something is very different. At that point.
And you just focus. You're not trying to growth, and you're trying to babysit the customers, and it's a lower return play than your hyper growth. But somebody has to deal with that, and that's what we do.
And you've had to focus on talent all over the world for this. You've scaled it up massively. Obviously, if you're thinking about talent at that kind of scale, you're kind of thinking about education too a little bit. Are some of the ideas coming from your business and that as well?
Well, I mean, Trilogy University as the concept, started that way. But yes, that a lot of what you're doing, I mean, in any business, right? How do you upskill your talent base? And right now, every company has to say, well, how am I going to educate my entire employee base about AI? And so education is everywhere. I have, and sort of 3 years ago, decided to focus on K-12, which is sort of my new phase 2 of my career.
So let's talk about phase 2. So you became one of the most successful guys in the tech world by far with a couple acts with this thing. Before I jump right into K-12, so you've clearly been thinking about this a long time. You sponsored some of Roland Fryer's work, someone I really admire, a Harvard economist. You guys went into the inner cities and you tried to test like what interventions would work or not. Tell us what you guys learned from that.
Sure. So one of the things, back to incentives, right? He's an economist focused on education, and he's like, what are the incentives that will help kids learn better? And so he worked. I think he did a lot of it. We sponsored the stuff at Houston School District, where it was what would happen if you pay teachers, right? Sort of performance pay for teachers. What happens if you pay parents to show up for PTA meetings or check the homework? What happens if you pay kids? Right.
I love
what
that
will
one.
you do this?
Yeah.
And it was, and I mean, he was awesome. And, I was completely clueless because I remember I was like, why don't we just give everybody, $1,000 if they get straight A's? And he's like, Joe, I don't understand. Wimbledon is next week. Why don't you just go win Wimbledon? You get like $5 million. And it's just, and I was like, oh, I guess you got to do all this work and not just the
a lot
result.
of subtlety, not just the other.
No, and it's what you're teaching kids daily habits is actually what you're trying to incent, not just outstanding outcomes, because that's part of education.
So you're incenting daily habits, but you're also incenting the results as well.
Correct. But you have to, the whole path. You have to do both. You have to incent, you have to teach them what are the daily habits. It's sort of like
they can't just go
habits.
win Wimbledon all of a sudden. They have to actually be taken along the right way.
You gotta scaffold your way into it, which also affects how we do education today.
So you guys figured out, and that was, I mean, the result. You tried paying the teachers, tried paying the parents. The result was paying the kids the right way. It was actually by far the most effective, right? Yeah.
No, paying the kids is by far the most effective way to do it, and you can get big effect size on doing this. It really works. And when we talk about we did not have the budget even for his research back then versus what we use today.
Yeah.
And you can sort of think of some of our incentive stuff as like taking his stuff and just jacking it to,
So incentives are very important for kids' education along with the other stuff you're doing. How many children do you have?
So I have 2 daughters. So one is a college student and one is a senior in high school.
And you helped build this school for them originally, right? As well.
Yeah. Well, actually how it started. So how I got into education really in a big way was a decade ago, a Stanford grad, Mackenzie Price, was a co-founder of Alpha School. And, one of the things I've learned as a principal now, and I've been principal for 3 years, is parents want their kids to be educated the way they were. And, I went to Catholic school and I didn't like it a lot, but my kids are at Catholic school. And Mackenzie's like, oh, come to my new school. And I'm like, I'm not going to your weird school. This is so weird. This is so different. Like, no. And it took her 2 years, right, of convincing me and selling me and all these things to get me to move my kids over. But the other problem with education is education's not scalable. There's all these pockets of education where you get really good results, but they don't scale. Yeah. And I very much viewed Alpha and Mackenzie's school as that way, which is great for my kids, great for the other kids in Austin who do it.
But didn't work at scale.
How do you do it at scale? And that's where sort of I ended up coming in and sort of was 3 years ago when Gen AI came out. I was like, ooh, neural nets are here. Yeah. Finally, after decades, they're finally, and with these, I was like, we can take what you're doing, Mackenzie, and get this out to 1 billion kids, right? And so it was that realization that sort of did phase 2. And so, the transition for me was I went to my team, and my team have been there for 25 years at Trilogy, and for 25 years they tell me how great they are and how they're better than me. And I'm like, we'll see. You're just going to run the company. You're going to run the software company. I'm going to go be a principal.
I love it.
And so I also made it a little harder for him because I said, well, I'm taking $1 billion cash out of the company so I can fund.
And why $1 billion? And this is awesome. You're taking money you've made. You're going to put $1 billion into education. Why is it $1 billion? Why is that needed?
We need at scale. You need full stack reinvention here. And education, you're not going to do it with small money, right? You need full stack, which is, there for 20 years, people have funded ed tech. Lots of VCs has funded lots of ed tech. None of it works, right? Our ed tech investment goes like this, test scores keep going down. Yeah. And so you have to go revisit from the ground up and build it. You got to build campuses, you got to build schools, you need physical plants.
And this seems like a big important part to me. Ed tech is not usually the school itself. The problem is if the school itself's broken, you can't just put stuff on top of it. You got to make the core work.
You have to go back to first principles and reinvent everything. And when we talk about like how we looked at the school to reinvent it, it's a lot. It's a lot, and you need a lot of investment to do it. And just to be clear, like my billion is a drop in the bucket of what is required. Hundreds of billions of dollars it's a $7 trillion industry globally.
We're going to need hundreds of billions to fix it.
Hundreds of billions to fix this, right? And, capitalism is going to have to provide capital if we're fixing education.
Which is hopefully something school choice could do. We're going to get to that as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can give a few more billion if you need. I guess
absolutely
it's good. So the schools themselves, like I like to think I know this is not probably right, but so there's this advancement with Acton Academy that was made here, where the students themselves were kind of given more, like it was like more libertarian school almost. They're given more authority. They learn how to learn. They have their own rules and stuff. And I like to think you guys kind of took Acton with this new model and you put things on top of it. You put in more incentives and accountability and gamification and AI. Is that like a okay way to describe it, or how do you think about it?
I mean, Acton's a great model on what they've done, and the co-founder with McKinsey came from Acton.
Yep.
He worked with Stanford there, and that is a sort of our roots is definitely comes from there. But we added definitely more tech. Today, if you look back, there's definitely more tech involved. There's definitely more rigor involved. We definitely are much more expensive. So we've added a lot of cost structure.
Why is it more expensive? What does it cost money?
So back to where we have a much lower guide teacher ratio than what Acton.
So you have more guides.
So we have more guides. We have more teachers, more adults in the building.
Why did you guys end up needing that?
Kids, when you start in kindergarten, right, they need more structure to get them through.
Especially the young kids, but does the 7th and 8th and 9th grader need structure?
So actually we changed that. So if you look at where money goes, in an alpha school, how much you pay your guides, we pay our guides more.
Yep.
Number 2, at kindergarten, we have many more guides per student.
Yep.
When you move up to middle schooler, the kids are like, dude, I don't need all these guides. Like, I'm an adolescent. Like, but we take the money and we put them into life skill workshops. And part of the thing is we'll talk about different schools that we've started, but Alpha, which is sort of our high end, is a high end private school where in our design goal, when we were doing the product management around it, we said, what can kids do if money's no object? If you can you turn a kid up to 11, give them everything, what can you really get out of it so that we can set sort of an exemplar around that? Now, we're coming out with schools at half the price, and
even at half the price, you're getting kids to like the very top results.
Correct. Academically, it's actually funny because school's a bundle, and actually the easiest and cheapest things to fix is actually the academics, right? Because that's tech driven versus the rest of the day is all very human driven.
Tell us about the life skill workshops. What are those?
Sure. Actually, let me spin back and just say when we reinvented the school, sort of the five categories to look at. The most important thing that we did, and this is Brian, McKinsey's co-founder, when I asked him, I said, what are the 2 things I don't believe about school that I should believe? This is a decade ago. He's like, your kids must love school. And I didn't really like school and dropped out and stuff. I'm like, it's sort of like spinach, right? And he's like, nope, they need to love school. And today, when we reinvent, that is the core value of every school we start, whether it's an alpha or any other type. And I believe anybody who's going into education, and our standard is actually kids must love school more than going on vacation.
That's high.
And I believe that is a standard
high bar.
That if we're going to put kids for a decade, right, dozen years into this stuff, as a parent, right, we should expect that out of the school because it's totally doable.
Yeah.
It's a totally doable thing. We should set that as our standard. At Alpha, we're up to 96% of kids say they love school. 40 to 60% say I'd rather go to school than go on vacation. Like my highlight as principal in the last 3 years was a few months ago, 2/3 of my high school students sent a note and said, can we keep the school open over the summer? We don't want to take summer break. Wow. And I thought that was the most crazy email I've ever gotten, and we did. So now I guess we're year round at Alpha High because the kids love it. And the key is they're working on things that matter, that they care about, right? And you have to have that. And you can start that really young. Kids love it. They're excited about it.
Wow.
And so that's number 1 is they have to love school to that level. The second one, if you're reinventing school, for the neach 20 years in our AI world coming, kids need to learn 10 times faster. We cannot have this 200-year-old model where it's 6 hours a day, teacher in front of a classroom, plus homework, right? AI and learning science, right, allow you to teach kids 10 times faster. And for 40 years, right, Dean Schwartz at Stanford and the schools of education all have written 10,000 papers on how kids could learn 2, 5, or 10 times faster. Now, they all start with, this doesn't work in a teacher in front of a classroom model. And no one's been willing to break that model, right? Because that is the most sacred model in education.
Locked in, so they don't want to do what's better.
No one's going to change it. And everybody's scared because no one wants their kid to be a guinea pig, right? You have all those issues.
Yeah.
And so in our model, right, we have built a learning engine that teaches kids 10 times faster. And so how that reacts or how you see it in our school is our students come in 2 hours a day. They're at an AI tutor. It's not teacher in front of a classroom. And in that 2 hours, they learn over twice as much as kids who sit in class for 6 and do homework.
Yep.
And so our academic performance, we're the best performing academic school in the country. We're, all our classes now are top 1%. We crush it. And it's for everybody. We have a gifted, talented school where those kids are off the chart.
Yeah, those are even more ahead.
They're even more chart. I mean, and when you see with those kids, we take kids who are years behind, and we can take kids from the bottom 25% and get them to the top 25% in 2 years.
I'm very jealous of this. My friends and I were allowed to go like a grade or two ahead in math, and that was it. And that was considered to be like, we're very lucky. And if we had this school, I feel like, especially a couple of my friends who are smarter than me, they would have just been done by the 4th grade or something.
You totally would have been. Well, just to give you some data points, we have 3rd and 4th graders who outscore 50% of the high school graduates in this country.
Crazy, yeah.
My older daughter, who is 1600 SAT math English double major at Stanford, who went through the old system, and she was at Alpha for 10 years with no teacher.
Yeah.
She is looking at our latest version, and she was looking at the kids, and she went down and saw the 3rd and 4th graders, and she's like, they're getting what I got in 8th grade and 7th grade, and they're doing it in 3rd grade. So this acceleration of what these kids can do, I mean, it's getting better, and it just keeps accelerating.
We got to get to some more of the U.S. faster to make sure we dominate.
Exactly. We absolutely do. We need, and we have one GT school here in Austin. We need, if any of your listeners are really like, I'm a builder and I want to go change the world, come open 500. Yeah. Right? We need great entrepreneurs who want to come and be able to open 500 GT schools.
Or open a GT school just for their kids maybe too. Even just one's probably pretty
open
valuable.
Open 500. Yeah. Like, let's go do this at scale, because there's nothing more important for a society than how it raises its kids.
Yeah.
Right? It's the single most important thing. It determines whether society continues. And so let's go work on that.
I'm actually curious on this point because I think there's like a U where a society, there's dialectic. We need our best and brightest to get way ahead because they're going to fix everything for us. You also, from an ethical perspective, want to make sure the bottom are taken care of, and that you have classes for the least well off. Alpha is probably more about the average and the top, or is it also doing things for the bottom?
Everything. So we're going to get this out. Back to my thing is, I took $1 billion and I'm going to get this out to 1 billion kids. Wow. So I'm going to have the whole range. Wow. And we have ones where academically, right, the way to solve kids who are behind, right? In a time-based system, once you fall behind, you never get to catch up. And for me, it was back to being new in the job. I went to one of the worst performing, academically performing schools, and I sat down and I watched the 6th grade teacher. And the 6th grade teacher is handing out 6th grade material. But I'd seen the test score, which is if you're bottom 10% in this country, you can't read. You don't know 7 times 8. And she's handing out 6th grade material. I'm like, they can't read. Yeah. I'm like, that's like giving me an MCAT. Like, I don't even know the words on the page. Like, this is, and you can tell me to have grit and hard work. It doesn't matter. You can give it doesn't work. Instead, what that class needed was 1st grade phonics, right? 2nd grade phonics. And a teacher who's a 6th grade teacher needs to hand out 6th grade material, right? They're teaching 6th grade. And this is where why the AI tutors do so much better.
They can actually figure out the ontology of everything what you need to know and don't know and go back and teach it.
Just go back. And this kid, and each kid gets the lesson that's personalized to them. And you need 1st grade, great. You need 2nd grade math, whatever. And that is why you get these 10x learning, because you put material. Kids need to, every educator will tell you the 2 things you need to educate a kid. You need a motivated student, and we'll talk about when we get to motivation. The second is you have to put them in material of the correct difficulty. And AI tutors and EdTech, not even ours, just EdTech does that second really well. And that's 10% of the solution, is get them into the right answers. 90% is how do you have a motivated student.
Let's go back. You said there are 5 key things. Let's make sure we know.
Great.
What are all 5
Great. So that 2, now we're getting to your original with life skills. So once you learn 10 times faster, it only takes 2 hours a day, then you're like, well, what should we do the rest of the day? Right? What is it? Because I can promise you as a principal, the one thing parents do not want you to do after 2 hours is send the kids home. Right? And so what do you do for the 4 hours? Right? Yeah. And this is where you teach them life skills, right? What are the skills that we think make you successful in life, especially as you look in the forward, when AI is going to transform the world, pure academics is not enough anymore. Yeah. And so in ours, we have a life skills curriculum where we teach leadership and teamwork, storytelling and public speaking, entrepreneurship and financial literacy, socialization and relationship building, grit and hard work, right? And so they're doing these project-based workshops run by adults, right? That's we call them guides and coaches. And they're doing these super fun afternoon workshops, right? Which drives love of school way up and teaches them these life skills.
How do you do grit plus loving it? Because doesn't grit imply there has to be something difficult going on?
And so I'll give you one other thing that you have to believe to think Alpha's model is going to work. And this is probably the most controversial thing I'll say today, which is the key to your child's happiness is high standards. And many parents are very worried. They think low standards is the key to my child's happiness. But for the same reason people came to Trilogy University, because it was going to be the hardest thing they ever did, they do that. Kids want to do hard things. They want to do awesome things. And it starts in kindergarten. Now, parents naturally are like, I don't want to see my kids struggle and fail. I don't. But every development expert in the world will say the key to your child's development is that they struggle and fail on their road to success, supported by a caring, loving adult, right? That loop is what you just want. That drives self-confidence. It drives resilience, all those good things. It also, and this is the most controversial thing, I can't make a school that kids love so much they'd rather go on it than vacation if I don't have high standards. Yeah. If kids are scrolling TikTok and playing video games all day and just doing stuff, they're not going to say, they're not going to say, they'll just do it on summer break.
Yeah.
They have to be working in a team with other people on awesome, challenging things. And my best analogy outside of school is, and parents just think that's so crazy, yet 50% of America thinks the place I teach those life skills is in after-school sports. And if you take the athletic ethos that almost everybody, half the people in America totally believe, they want it because it's high standards. That coach, like Westlake football down the street, right? Yep. State champions. Every parent is like, I want my kid on the Westlake football team because A, it's the hardest thing that kid's ever going to do, and he'll remember it the rest of his life.
But you should make everything else like that too.
Correct. Yeah. And everybody else is like it. And they already do. Like if you're on the Westlake football team, right? You come during the summer. You practice, right? All these things where I say, oh, when I apply to academics, they're like, that's crazy. But sports, everybody expects it's normal because they love it.
This is interesting. I think my friends and I had to create this for ourselves outside of school when we were young. Otherwise, it would have been miserable. So we had all these things we were doing that were very, very hard, and you'd fail and then you succeed. Did you have that in your life too, where you push yourself outside of it?
This is back to changes in my life and back to this might also affect my views of school. After I dropped out of school at Stanford, my dad had the famous quote of "You're a moron" and "You're an idiot" and all that. 18 months later, we were talking and he's like, I'm so glad you dropped out. I changed my mind. And he's like, before you dropped out, I thought you were a lazy little shit. Always shirking the work. You never really engaged. You were always trying to do the minimum to sort of get through. He's like, since you dropped out and found what you love, I've never seen you work harder. You're working, we were working, sleeping on the desk, 100 hours a week, the classic startup stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, thank God that you're like that and not just this, what he was worried about.
Yeah.
And I believe back to this whole thing of like where you go through that transition. Our job, like when we look at Alpha, our job is to find what ignites the kid, right? We started middle school. Like, don't give them kids don't want to be consumers. They don't want to scroll TikTok and play video games all day. They only do it because our current system basically doesn't give them options. Yeah. Like your after school stuff had to be, self-driven. Ours is like, let's just make our schools where we help the kids find their passion and make sure the standards are really high, and they will so impress you with what they do because they want to be awesome. Kids want to be awesome.
I love it. Let's talk a little more about like incentives and accountability. Like I think at one point I heard like the kids are ranked in different ways, which some people don't like, but obviously it's part of like holding them accountable. Like how do you engineer these incentives? How do you do it?
Yeah. So motivation's 90% of the solution. So we spend a lot of time on the motivation part. And the thing about motivations you have to understand is every kid is motivated a different way. And, understanding that motivation and sort of the hierarchy and framework and changing them over time is critical to building it. And our guides, when we think of what our guides do all day. So that is their number one job, which is, they're not teaching 7th grade science because the AI tutor's doing that. So what do our adults in the building do all day? What they do is motivational and emotional support, right? They are either motivating this kid, they are getting to know this kid so well so that they know what does matter. And then second, how do I support them through that struggle loop we talked about earlier? And so when we talk about motivation, let's sort of give you a stack rank of the ones that really matter. There's an Astral Codex article that is out there that's from an alpha parent who's like, I think the money is the most important. And we actually, we'll get into it, but I actually don't think that's true, which is the name of our product is called Time Back.
Time back.
Give kids their time back.
That's cool.
And that is by far the most motivation.
I need that.
And exactly. And so for kids, we waste most of their kids, their first 12 years in school, we're wasting it. We're wasting their day.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and this is how it, and sort of the product management side that came out of this was my first day 3 years ago, first week, I'm now principal because I was like, Mackenzie, I need to go be a product manager and figure out, how to do this. So I'm talking to these new fifth graders who had just started, and I'm new. I'm like, do you guys love school? Because I have to deliver, the first commitment. You love school. And they're like, no. And I'm like, what would make you love school? And they're like, less school. And I'm like, how much less? And they're like, none. Oh. And I'm all like, okay, that seems a little light here. And we literally negotiated 2 hours. And I was like, look, how about this? Would you engage in the apps, right? If I built some apps and would you engage them in 2 hours if we made the other 4 hours awesome and fun and stuff you loved and all that? And the kids are like, that sounds fair. And so I went to my engineering team. I'm like, we got 2 hours. We have to fill this kid's head with awesome knowledge, and we got to do it in 2 hours. Now, luckily, because of learning science and AI tutors and Gen AI, you can build this engine, which is what we did. But that motivation, the kids will tell you, which is, and the counter on the money is, if you're back once down in Westlake's honors program, it's 6 hours a day and 4 hours of homework. You can't pay those kids enough money, right, to be happy.
That's
and so, but once you give kids their time back and free it up to do all the awesome stuff they want to do, plus we think is really valuable, hard things, all these cool things, then that's the primary motivator. Then second, though, let's talk about, we use, sometimes in kindergarten it's a sticker. All our guides have these, we can talk forever about all the individualized motivation that each of our guides.
Because there are different ones you classify. There are different types of motivation.
Different types of motivation. Our guide, our middle school girls love the Taylor Swift dance off. So after they finish their lessons each day, they take 15 seconds to do the Taylor Swift dance off. I'm like, okay, I guess that's what does it. Just every kid, has different things. Let's talk about the big controversial ones, though. Let's talk about money and going back to Roland Fryer and stuff. Yeah. So where to use money? Parents' natural reaction is, I hate this. I don't ever want to use it. It's evil. It's bad. Yeah. And so we have a range, and I'll go through some examples to sort of challenge you on that. A lot of us had parents who get straight A's, you get $25 or something like that. So,
my dad paid me for my A's, I think.
Right. Yeah. So there was always a little bit of this, but we just amp it, right? Yeah. And we sort of took it as how would you do this ground up? So let me take examples what parents will agree with. Okay. So first off, in middle school, right? Let's say I pay your kid to do great on academics, and then they use that money, it funds their passion project account. That's where cool. They get to do an afternoon workshop that's their passion project. So I have a high schooler actually who, she's an arts theater girl, let's call her arts theater girl, 790 math SAT.
Wow.
Okay?
It's pretty good for arts theater girl.
When she came in, she was not thinking 790. Yeah. We had to use money and motivation to get her there, right? To break through things, and we can talk about that. But she used it to fund, she is launching the first all-teen produced, acted, shown Broadway musical.
Amazing.
Right? Sourced everything off TikTok. She needed the money to go talk to a producer up in New York City. Yeah. Every parent's like, okay, that seems okay too. Or how about in middle schoolers, after they finish their academics and crush it, because we pay every kid in middle school at Alpha $1,000 if they get to top 1%. Great. But it funds their Robin Hood for Kids account to teach them how to
trade,
earn, save, invest, spend, and donate.
Amazing.
And parents are like, okay, that seems pretty good too, right?
Yeah, that's reasonable.
And so those are reasonable places, of where money's okay. Other ones, we use money basically for two things, because money is a big motivator. It's not number one, but it's still big, is if we can inculcate daily habits, daily studying, right? Daily good habits, you're willing, and generally I tell parents, you're willing to pay the kid to get the habit jump started, right? Just get it started and then it will continue. And so it's worth it to whatever the motivation you need. And if money's there for the kid, do it.
Some kids, it's better than others that have money for that.
Yeah, and some aren't motivated by money. Like my oldest daughter, right? She was naturally just loved school. Money never moved the needle at all. My younger daughter is literally the opposite. And I'll give you this, and we'll tell this one. This one's, sort of, because I personally lived through it, it's the most emotional one. But I think it encapsulates all the struggle parents have, because we had a lot of family discussions. So my younger daughter, is opposite of her older daughter, my older daughter. And when she got to middle school, she got to top 10% academically, right? She hit her top 10%. And she came to me and she's like, Dad, I'm not like my older sister. I'm not top 1%. Top 10's great, and I'm super happy. And I was like, well, the one thing I know about you is you love to shop. And you love that more than anything. And so I bet you $1,000 you can't get to top 1%. And so she literally filled her Amazon card up and would look at it every day.
Of things she wanted to buy.
And then she'd do her apps.
Oh, that's funny.
And she'd do her apps. And then she hit top 1%.
Wow.
Now, but it encapsulates the problem, because we had a lot of family discussions, because my wife was not a fan of this because of two reasons. One, you're setting top 1% as the standard for somebody who says, that's not what I want. So, and then second, you're paying her for this, right? Both dimensions. And lots of parents don't like either of those. So my family was living exactly what all the parents think. But here's the part that, was transformative is after my daughter hit it, she sat down with my wife and was like, hey, Mom, I know you didn't like this, but you need to understand that before this, I never thought I was as smart as my older sister, right? I didn't think I was smart. But after doing this, I realize I can do anything she can do if I just work hard at it.
That's awesome.
And that concept, and that is the second use of where I would tell every parent, use money. A lot of education is your kids have natural blocks where
you're
think
unlocking
they
they can do these things. I love that about the inner city stuff too with Roland Fryer, because you have these kids that are maybe from families, no parent, no father in the home, not doing well, and they just assume they can't, and all of a sudden you showed them they can. I thought that was really neat.
No, and that part where we should spend $1,000 for we spend $20,000 a kid in this country for public school.
Yeah, you
in
should
education.
spend money on
spend $1,000 so every kid wakes up and is like, I can get to whatever academic performance.
Teaching them what's possible.
Exactly, and breaking through those internal hard limits that they have.
For people who don't know very well what's going on with Alpha, one worry is that, you're doing this for all these affluent kids who are from the good families and they're smart anyway for the most part. But like, what's the evidence we could do this more broadly? I think you did things in Poland and Kenya as well. Like, tell us about the more broad evidence.
So, if alpha is the high end where you're like, okay, money's no object, now we got to get this down. And I have to be able to get these same results at less than $20,000, right?
Yeah.
I got to drive that cost down, and to 1 billion people, I got to get it down to less than 1,000. So,
well, first America though is like 10 to 20,000 or something.
Right. It's basically it's $1 trillion, 50 million kids is the round estimate. So 20,000 a pop, right? 20 grand a kid. And then, but yes, if I'm going to be doing Kenya and sub-Saharan Africa, I'd be $1,000. Yep. And that is our target goal. We're absolutely going to get there. It's not going to be tomorrow, but I'm in this for the next 20 years. So.
America first, but then the rest of the world.
Here we go.
Okay,
absolutely.
Good. Let's do that.
But we'll give you examples. But back to motivation, right? The things are different, which is we absolutely, one of the things about an AI tutor, it doesn't matter where you start. So you can be in the bottom 25%. And if you have a motivated student, we can get them there, right? It's how do you get them to do that first grade phonics lesson, like I was explaining before. Mm-hmm. It's all motivation. It's 90% motivation. So we've run pilots. We don't have this rolled out broadly, but we've run pilots, right, in public schools where you take MTSS level 3 kids. And MTSS level 3 is basically your bottom 10% kids academically.
Got it.
And we sit down and we're like, here's what's different of us in normal ed tech. Normal ed tech, you're like, give them the app and see if it works. And we're like, the app doesn't matter. Our stuff's great, but it doesn't really matter. It's what are you going to do to motivate the kid to do the work? Yeah. Right. And so we literally on our pilot, we gave the kids gift cards. Right.
If they finish the gift cards unlocks if they finish.
They'd unlock the gift card if they finish the lessons. That's cool. And all of a sudden, if you talk to the parents who did that at that public school system, they're like, or the teachers, they're like, it transformed these kids' lives. The parents will say the same thing. Yeah. We have, our middle schoolers, back to Alpha, our middle schoolers were like, they read about how these Ukrainian refugees didn't have schools and teachers, right? And so this was 2 years ago now, where they're like, well, we're going to go to Ukraine, right? And teach them how to use our engine and
That's cool.
Fix it. And they're like, I'm like, wow, that seems really hard for you guys to do that. They're like, Mr. Liemandt, you say we're limitless and can do anything. We can do the impossible. I'm like, okay, that's true. Although I did find one thing that's impossible, which is convincing parents to allow their kids to go to Ukraine during a war.
That's pretty tough.
The parents said no. So the kids went to Poland instead.
Yeah, and help the
refugee
people there.
center. There was refugee center right on the border. They went there.
I love it.
And back to motivation. So before they went, and they had to spend from August to back to when you talk about life skills. Yeah. This is what they did from August to January is they had to raise money for it. They had to go raise all the money.
Yeah.
So they're walking around downtown Austin getting, businesses to fund them. They had to learn Ukrainian to order food. Like you couldn't go on the trip unless you were able to order your food and, because you had to be able to talk to kids and, relate. And so they did all these things. And then in January, like they fly over there and, the refugee workers are like, oh, they so want to learn. They have a thirst for learning and all these things. And the middle schoolers get over, the alpha kids, and they call me and they're like, Mr. Liemandt, these kids' lives suck. They have no interest in doing math problems, none. And I was like, you guys are the experts. You're their age. Figure it out. Figure out the motivation. They call me back the next day. They're like, $2.50. If we pay these kids $2.50, because they have nothing.
Yeah.
$2.50 a day, they will do the lessons. Wow. And if, we could really crush it if you double it if they do a 5-day streak. And so they changed the program name to Learn and Earn. And so we've had for a couple of years, we have over 1,000 Ukrainian refugees, right, on this system.
I love it. And
you're learning as fast as our $40,000 private school.
It's such a cool use of being a billionaire is to be able to just help tons and tons of kids, and you figure out they need a little tiny bit of money, and it must be really satisfying to be able to use that skill of money to change these lives.
Yeah, and I look at this. We're gonna be able to fix education. I know there's been so many claims in 20 years and all this hype and stuff, and obviously I'm gonna spend the next 20 years and to make it happen, but. Every kid can get this system. Like our vision, if you said, what do we have to get to? Sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, we need a tablet that's less than $1,000. So on-device AI to, hit the cost target. On-device AI that teaches every kid on this planet everything they need to know in 2 hours a day or less. Yep. All the things we spend 6 hours in homework.
Very Neil Stephenson in
exactly.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. And and make that available. But the key to that whole thing is how are you going to motivate the kid to engage with the apps?
That's the thing that Diamond Age left out. The motivation incentives are actually much more key than
they really
itself.
matter. Yeah. And so some of them are just, there's cash stuff, but others, and that we're talking about is, a big motivator for kids is video games and screen time. And so we've back to other motivation things besides money.
I heard you have some kids who just won't study at all, but then you'll let them play video games if they unlock certain things by studying. That's very clever.
Yeah. Well, back to parents allowing motivation. How about for 1 hour in the AI tutor, you give them an hour of screen time, right? Most parents, when they're worried about managing screen time, they're like, well, if my kid's top 1%, I'm going to let them play some video games. It's when they're behind that you don't want them to spend.
That was a deal I made with my parents. My dad and I made this deal that as long as I had straight A's, he'd stop worrying about my bedtime. My mom hated this deal. It was like 3rd or 4th grade. So she's like, "What are you doing?" But it's like, I think it's fair if you're acing things.
This is for my oldest daughter. I was always like, you can read as late as you want. Just you can't complain when you get up for school.
That's what we're doing. My oldest too. She reads really late at night,
and they just read and they think they're getting away with stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's stuff it's totally awesome. Motivation. So anyway, you can do it. Give kids video game time.
Two policy questions that come out of this before we finish that I think a lot of people are curious about. So one of them is a battle I'm really involved in. I think, for example, New York State right now currently bans any use of AI in these things. So your apps actually are not allowed there, as far as I understand. This is a big battle in our country. Are we going to let AI get involved and help kids? Are you following this at all? It seems like there's a lot of states that want to regulate these things, and it's a big question.
Yeah, well, it's a huge question, and it is a big one because I also am on record that if you deploy ChatGPT to students, 90% of them use it to cheat.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that useful.
It is a cheat bot, not a chat bot.
Yeah,
and so it can do harm for sure. It can also be awesome, like the way
if you're using it right. It's great.
Use it right. We cannot ban using AI right because it transforms kids' childhood, and so we have to fight this to the end, which is the correct use of AI can have every kid have a dramatic AI to a 5-year-old. This is the best time in history to be a 5-year-old if we allow AI to transform the 12 years of schooling that you and I went
This is an awesome point, and make it so they love it versus like for a lot of my school too, I was stuck as a prison, right? And it was terrible. So hopefully the moderates win on this one. It's going to be a big battle. I'm very involved in that. The other policy question is school choice, and I know there's lots of different views on this, but you know my view, and I've been involved in this battle, is that we should let parents like try things, because when you try things in a free society, then the best new ideas can win. And so school choice is going to fund a lot of new alpha schools, it sounds like. So how are you thinking about this?
So I look at school choice. I'm, yes is my answer, which is, I'm a product guy, and parents want different things.
Yeah.
And trying to have one school where you have to solve all parents' problems, it's an impossible job. And so I look at the superintendent of public school districts, or, principals of public schools. It's 10 times harder than mine. I don't know how to solve it, to be honest, where, you want somebody who wants X and the opposite of X. Like, I want academics. I hate academics, right? I care about all these other things.
Yeah, I want values. Don't teach my kids your values.
I mean, part of what we do at Alpha is we're very clear of this is what we do, right? And if you don't like it, don't come, right? And you need that kind of thing. We have a sports academy, right? We have a sports academy. And if you think sports motivates your kid, send them to a sports academy. Yeah. We also have a gifted, talented school.
You yourself are creating multiple types of choices.
Correct.
For them.
You have to create all these different choices, and we need 1,000 entrepreneurs creating all these choices so a parent can send their kid to a school, right, that's going to motivate them. When you sit and say, I have to make a kid love school so much they don't want to go on vacation, man, you have to optimize that school for them, right? And like, you look at our gifted school, right, as an example, in most public schools, there's, 1 or 2 kids who are gifted. They're often shunned, dork, nerd, right? It's not great to be a super smart kid in a lot of schools. Man, you go to our gifted school, I mean, those kids, they freaking amp each other up. It's so amazing. Like, they came to me and they're just like, Mr. Liemandt, we're going to be the last humans smarter than AI, right? I mean, it's just, and just back to an example, two of the groups came and said, we want to enter the global AI debate this last spring. It was, I think, 10,000 people from around the country, or the world. It's global competition. When it was cut to the round of 8, we entered 2 teams. When it was cut to the round of 8, both our teams made it to the round of 8.
Wow.
And we're the last Americans, right? Wow. And we ended up second and fifth. And this is the kind of stuff when you can build school choice where you're like, let's go put all those kids together and have them be awesome.
Do amazing things.
I mean, it's just so amazing. And they love school, right? They don't need money incentives and stuff. They're like, when you ask them, what would make you love school more? They're like, more academics.
I love it.
Right? And you're like, yes, give them a third power hour. Give them math.
That would have been my nerdy friends and me.
Totally.
I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. How do you, one other thing I wanted to ask, because a lot of my friends, my wife asks about it a lot. It feels like in the age of AI, a lot of people are kind of losing a lot of their values and principles foundation, right? So I think, if you're British and you're Christian, it's really important to be proud to be British and proud to be Christian. Otherwise, you see how what happens, which is society kind of goes awry. And so in America, for my kids, we're really proud to be American, and we really believe in the American Constitution and its values in a way that schools usually don't teach, because we really strongly believe in that. And we also really strongly, in our case, believe in our Jewish traditions and Jewish values, which we want to impart to our kids. How do you think about giving kids these foundations in a place this obviously not religious? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I believe that, part of teaching kids, you are indoctrinating them. Right. Yeah. And this is however you want to use it. You're educating them, indoctrinating them.
Yeah, you're giving them the
You're giving them values. And so every parent has a set of values, right, that they want to impart. And if you want to step back even more than America, just globally, it's one of the things to get to a billion kids that we think about is, every country believes I need to care about my customs, laws, values, and curriculum of what we're going to have our kids. And I believe in the AI world, every family and every society, every country has to say, what are those values that we want to have kids learn? Because today, if you take America, there's a whole set of values that are getting put into kids via TikTok, right?
Which are not my values at all.
They're not your values at all, and they are super destructive to tons of kids. Right. And we look up every day.
Pro-socialism. It's like a lot of really crazy stuff.
I always tell my kids the 2 things that, TikTok, that your generation believes that a bunch of people don't, is that socialism is better than capitalism and the rights of the listener are better than free speech. And that is
That's
what's
dangerous.
on TikTok, right?
It's
Those are the
dangerous.
two things, and it's brainwashing them, and there's in it for hours, right? And so that's why they believe it, right? That's why you believe it. And so if you believe the opposite, like we wake up today when we talk about our AI tutor and putting thoughts in, that no, we need to outcompete TikTok.
And so explicitly in alpha, obviously, even though there's no religion, you still want to have those values, for example, of free speech and of markets.
Exactly.
Those are explicitly in the school.
They're explicit in the school. And when you just take civics, right?
Yeah.
What is the correct civics, right? And, we have the 250th coming up next year. What are the core American values that founded this country, and how do we get this right?
And it's important because if you just taught to the test, you wouldn't necessarily get those. So you actually have to also teach to the principles as well as to the test.
Correct.
I love it. That's really important.
And principles and core values matter. And now we don't take a left-right position, right? We believe in both sides. Part of critical thinking, as an example, just to go into it, is we believe everybody says we want kids to think critically, and have critical thinking. How we measure that is, can you argue both sides of the debate? And no matter who you are, if you can't steel man the other side, you don't understand the debate.
Yeah, that's really important.
We need to teach every kid how to do that, right? On every issue. And that's a measure where we're like, that is going to do more, right, to help the civics debate in this country than anything else we can do.
I had a really good teacher who had us do that. I'd have to argue both sides. And it's really tough to turn your mind around and do it, but it's fun when you can win both sides.
It puts you in the other street. No, mine, I had the same thing, which is I grew up in Catholic school, and my junior year morality teacher, right, Father Gonzalez, I came in one day, he's like, well, Joe, it's going to be your happy day. You're going to argue against the 10 Commandments today. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. I totally, just my personality, right?
Imagine most schools doing that. Most Christian schools wouldn't be able to. That's great to be able to.
Right? The Jesuits very much viewed, I was a Jesuit school, and they very much viewed that there's no dogma, right? We are going to learn. And
you have to see the other argument in order to defeat it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, and he said there was another kid in my class who you have to argue pro-abortion, and the kid said, I won't. Yeah. I refuse to do it. And he's like, I'm going to give you an F. And the parents came in and they're like, the priest is saying, no, you have to learn how
Even though we are pro-life, you must learn the other arguments. Otherwise, because you don't understand the other side, you're never going to be able to work with them.
Exactly.
Joe, we started this podcast to push back on cynicism and pessimism and the nihilism in our country. I think what you're doing is obviously very pro-optimism. What's your grand vision for 10 or 20 years from now? What can we achieve for our country if this works?
Yeah. Well, education is the most important thing that we can do, right? There is nothing more important than educating our youth, right? And raising the next generation. And when I look at AI, and what's coming over the next 10 years, it's going to be a mixed bag for some adults, right? In that, we're in Austin and there's robo-taxis and, Waymos and everything. And being an Uber driver is not really going to be great 5 years from now. But when you take AI and say, what's it going to do for kids, right? It is an unmitigated good, right? It is awesome for them because it is going to transform those 12 years. And these kids, AI gives kids superpower. Used correctly, it gives kids superpowers. There's no longer, right, 12 years, 6 hours a day, wasting most of our kids' childhood. These kids are going to be able to do awesome things, love it, engage in it. And when we look forward 10 and 20 years from now, we're going to be like, what the number one use of AI was to transform our next generation to be awesome.
A lot of people are worried about AI and social media and TikTok and all these things. Is there a way that we can take this and do what you're doing to transform them to be more principled people who are actually better leaders later, who can withstand that?
100%. I mean, back to the whole principle part, it matters, right? On the values, you're going to be able to do it. But when kids are learning 10 times as much, they love it. You're doing challenging things that they love. These kids, right? The last line, when we didn't even we forgot to talk about 4 and 5 on our list. But number 5 is character, community, right? Classmates and culture, right? That's the core part of a school. And when you talk, at the end of the day, all you care about as a parent is, did I raise a good kid? Right? Character, right? And and we look at what we're doing at Alpha, and if you meet Alpha kids, you're like, God, those are good kids, right? And I believe that's something that we absolutely can do. And AI is, right, it's a double-edged sword. It can be used for bad, and we can TikTok brainwash everybody, and it'll be really bad. Or we can use it to transform education, to actually build the kids that we all love and are excited about.
I love it. And just so we have it, what are the 5?
The 5 things are: you must love school more than vacation. Your kid can crush academics in 2 hours a day. Third, life skills, the whole life skills discussion. These are the critical life skills that your kid needs to succeed in an AI world. Fourth is guides and coaches, right? When you take them out of teacher in front of the classroom, can provide 10x the value to growing kids, right? And connecting with kids, right? And then fifth, the core community, right? So character, community, classmates, and culture are the core thing of a school that they are hard to measure, right? But they're critical if you're going to build the school of the future.
Awesome. Well, talking to you makes us all a lot more optimistic. Thanks for your leadership, Joe.
Thank you.